This is Beyond Strides, the science and culture of human movement. I'm Andi, and I want to empower you through knowledge and challenge your own thinking.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to this episode of Beyond Strides. It has been a while, but I'm back. I'm going to restart the podcast with a couple of questions because, to be honest, I had lost a lot of momentum and I started finding excuses why to not do the podcast. For example, my last excuse was because I had an allergy and I sound a bit like nasal, and the other excuse is that there is a construction site in my house. So if you can hear some vibrations or weird sounds, it's not me, it's the construction site. However, we're doing this. So I'm back. And today we're going to answer two questions. The first one is, when did you know you were ready to coach? And the second one is, how did you get your first clients? Before we start, I want to give you a little status update, what has been going on. I think the last podcast came out in January. And then in February, I was in Thailand and I was very committed to continue the podcast. There's also one episode I actually recorded, but I couldn't get it off the island because the internet on the island was so bad. There was no chance of me uploading or sending the podcast to anyone, not even to upload it to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And so I said, okay, I'm going to just do it once I'm back. And then the whole mentorship started and a lot of other tasks came in the way. And so I decided to redirect my energy and to postpone the podcast until the mentorship is done. And so we basically kicked off the first cohort of our mentorship beginning of February. Now we are in the last 2 weeks of the cohort. And to be honest, this whole mentorship is growing into something both of us, me and Johnny, wouldn't have imagined. So we have 24 people who are coaches, physios, some of them already self-employed, having clients and just wanted to learn anatomy more, biomechanics more, and how to return to run. Others of them are employed physiotherapists seeing 20 patients a day. And I think one even wrote, like, I'm seeing 20 patients a day and it kills me. And I could really feel that. And so we are helping them and showing them basically the way how to transition out of employment and this old physio structure into a new way to work and to actually help people, because this is what it is all about. We just want to help people who can't move, who cannot do the sport that they love, to be able to get back with more confidence and self-sufficiency. And so with the mentorship, we're not talking only about biomechanics and our rehab framework, how we go from early stage to mid-stage to late-stage rehab, but also about the basic principles and knowledge pieces you need to know to actually be self-employed. So how to structure your own finances. So the tax office is not coming and ringing at your doorbell. How to do your own marketing, how to find out what kind of clients you actually want to work with, or how to find out what you actually want to do, and then just pursuing that. And so far it has been really, really great. And just also to see everyone flourishing in it. We have gotten so many messages from people who were like, hey, I was employed and now I'm actually going to jump into self-employment. Another one from Bali, Nadine, said that she is now really sure what she wants to do and even joining another gym and creating a big rehab and performance space in Bali for all the athletes there. And it's just so nice to see them all win. And apart from that, we knew or we anticipated that would be coming, but what we did not anticipate for it to become is really a community. And I don't say community how it's used by the brands where they actually mean their customers. Our mentees are our customers, but the mentees are a community to themselves. So they have virtual coffee dates. I think some of them even talk about businesses together and they just connect. And I think they already also created a WhatsApp group to just stay connected afterwards. And I just love what the group has become. There's one who is not a coach yet. So she's working an office job doing something else and currently injured. And there's another one who is also working as something completely else, but injured. And through his own injury and his own rehab, he actually now started being a rehab coach. And he documented his own rehab on social media. And by this now he's getting clients. He's also just a really, really good practitioner and coach and has a really deep thinking about it. And then when I talked with the other one who was unsure how to start with social media, I said, look, I have not started my social media with my own injury, but I know someone who has. And then I just connected both of them and they started talking. And I think both of them are just flying. And so, the mentorship is coming to an end. It has been a very intense period because it has been a lot of filming. So the mentorship has a lot of modules with presentations. Each module, which lasts between 1 and 2 weeks, has a presentation of 150 to 250 slides, which we had to prep, we had to film, we had to edit. And so I was basically in podcast editing mode the whole time. And I know if I would have continued doing this podcast, the other thing, the mentorship, wouldn't have been such a high quality. And that's why I decided to kind of pull back. However, I'm really happy, and I have a lot to share. And I'm just happy that we started here. The other thing that has happened is that I hired a physiotherapist / coach, Judith. She is amazing. She is living in Hamburg and seeing all our online clients, and is working currently with 7 clients, I think. And she's just helping them to get back to what they love. So she has an older runner with a lot of chronic shin and foot pain, and they're navigating this and trying ways to keep him running, because this is what basically makes him happy. She has an athlete with hip pain who also had an elbow surgery and is now helping her get back on track. And also a pregnant woman with hip pain and getting her back to running and just making her strong for birthing her child. And next to that, she's killing it with 2 of our stress fracture clients, being very patient with them and them testing the limits at all times. But they're like crushing the rehab, and I can't wait to see them running and jumping around if they have a little bit more patience. And so, yeah, this has been really, really interesting, also really intense, because from someone who's just self-employed and just working for myself, now I am also kind of responsible for another person. And we have our weekly meetings and we discuss all the client cases. So basically, I'm in the background of every client case anyway. But the people working with her now get basically 2 brains for the price of 1, because she's a physio. She used to be a nurse in a hospital, and so she has a lot of knowledge I actually don't have. And so, yeah, this has been a very big enrichment to my own little team, and I'm really, really happy, and I just can't wait to see where all of this is going. I've been still working with athletes, so I've been doing the mentorship and working with my clients. Currently, I have a couple of very interesting cases, which is, one is a sprinter. She has an Achilles tendinopathy. She just started her outdoor season, and her right Achilles got really good, but now her left one flared up again. The left one used to be a problem years ago. And so we are kind of navigating that. And then also a BJJ athlete with some back and hip pain, which basically always comes when she's flexing her hip, which is basically the position she's in when she's fighting. And so we are navigating that. And then also working with some more runners, with a couple of triathletes. And yeah, it's been really exciting to work, to grow, to learn. I just learn with every client case. And to be honest, I think this is the most exciting thing on my job, is that I will never have learned everything. And there's always something new to learn and a new skill to acquire. And this is honestly what just excites me about this job a lot. And there are a lot of things planned for the summer. So first, I got to take a break a little bit. So yeah, I just announced I'm coming back, and then I'm saying I'm taking a break. But I said more a break from working a lot, because having the clients and building the mentorship is not only physical work, but actually a lot of emotional work to mentor 24 people, because we also had one-on-one calls, and Johnny and I just really did our best to take them where they are and help them individually as well. And so all of this is really fun and a really fulfilling job, but we kind of both underestimated how taxing emotionally it is. And so we're really looking forward to just lay down a bit and chill a bit, to be honest. And to be honest, I see the seasons of my work a bit like the seasons when I was an athlete, because throughout the year you have a top season, a peak season, where you have to qualify for world championships, European championships, all of this stuff. And then if you qualify, obviously also the championships. But then after the championships, you have like off months, basically, where nothing is happening, and then you slowly start to build. And running a business is a bit like being an athlete, to be honest, for me, because you cannot just peak the whole time. You will burn out at some point. And so you really have to deliberately say, okay, this is the peak season. This is where I will work more. And then after this, I need to pull back and recover. And the peak season so far has been creating the mentorship. We're going to go into the second cohort in September. So there will another peak season will be to start. We actually sold out, I think, half of it already. So if you're interested, let me know. I can send you some more info. Now, after the mentorship, we both said, hey, we need a rest. We need to chill. And in the last 10 days, I think I worked 3 to 4 hours every day. I still have clients and I still do all of that stuff. But to be honest, I read a lot. I read a lot of books. I journaled. I just chilled because before that, I was waking up at 6:30. By 7, I was at my desk until 9:30, 10. And then I just went to sleep. And this was basically every day, almost, except of the weekends. And so if you are planning on owning a business, or if you're owning a business, maybe just think about your year like a season in an athlete's calendar, and pick 1 or 2 big projects where you feel like, okay, this is my peak project where I want to peak, but then really plan time to recover after this, because after finishing the mentorship, I really wanted to start the podcast and I really wanted to start writing, but my mind was completely blank. I had not a single creative idea in my head just because I was exhausted, which is normal. And it was quite interesting because the first days where I started to chill, I kind of searched for ideas the whole time. And the more you search, the less the ideas will actually come. And then at some point, I just let it go and started reading and doing other things. And then after 3 or 4 days of completely letting it go, my creativity came back, which is a big sign of my overall health and relaxedness, I would say. And so if you struggle with that, just take some time off and don't chase ideas, because they will never come if you chase them. Like nothing comes if you chase it. This is what I've learned so far. Not your health, not money or business or anything. You kind of need to let go and trust, and then the things start to come. And so after this resting period, first, the next thing to come is just to help more athletes and people and everyday movers who want to work. And so the first and foremost thing is to help more people. So with the help of UDIT, we will help more athletes and more everyday people to just get back to what they love. And I'm really confident that this is not only going to get bigger and better over time, but both of us will learn so much along the way. And I just can't wait to reflect on the last year in a year's time. So I'm really curious about that process. Apart from that, we will also release a program, a rehab program. I'm not going to go into the specifics yet, but it's something that is done really, really poorly in rehab. So it's going to be really huge. We're going to release it this summer. Johnny and I are going to start working on it in 2 or 3 weeks when our resting period is going to come to an end, and when we feel like, we need to create something, then that will be the next project. And the podcast is definitely coming back every second week. I'm actually going to start writing on Substack. I kind of started already, because social media is one thing, but my true passion doesn't lie in creating short reels or short form content, but actually long form content. And this is something I want to do more and just explore my thinking through it. And so, yes, I'm really curious where this will lead me. Let's see, maybe in a half a year's time, I'll be like, no, I hate this. Maybe I'll love it. Maybe I'll write a book. Who knows? As said, I had difficulty starting this podcast. I think this is every time you just lose momentum. And I definitely lost momentum just not doing the podcast since February. So we have end of April, the last day of April is today. So I didn't do the podcast for actually 3 months, like the 3 months which were the mentorship months. And it was really hard to get back, because I was thinking, okay, what should the first topic be? What should I talk about? What do people care about? And I decided to make it easy for me. And I had a couple of questions noted. I also asked for some more questions, and I actually got a lot of questions. So to be honest, the questions that I got can already fill several podcasts, and also will fill several podcasts. So if you send me a question and I'm not going to answer it today, I will answer it, and maybe it deserves an own podcast, because some of the questions, actually all of the questions were really, really deep questions. I could talk about each question for an hour. So first, big props and big up for all of these really detailed and great deep questions. And because I'm a really big advocate for just taking action and doing the thing, I really didn't like that version of myself, not doing the thing and just finding excuses like I have allergies, I cannot talk, or there's a construction site, or there's not enough time to be creative, or today my skin doesn't look good. And so at some point I just scheduled this in my calendar a couple of days ago, and I was like, whatever happens, you're going to record this podcast. So here it is. The first question comes from Valentin. The question was in German, so I translated it in English. I have a question. I don't know if it makes sense for the podcast. It does. But either way, it interests me hugely. How did you know you were ready? I'm a big fan of your work and have listened to several of your podcasts. But when did you know you had enough knowledge to coach people with serious problems? And how did you recognize when you're reaching your limits with a problem? And what do you do then? This is such a lovely question. Actually, this question made me decide I'm going to record the podcast in 4 days. Like, I got this question at the beginning of the week, and it kind of made me emotional a little bit. And so I was like, okay, this is the sign for me to just start talking, because there are literally people who want to know. So I started working specifically in rehab without even calling it rehab back then in 2018 or 2019. I don't remember anymore which year it was, but it was my first client, Louisa, who came to me after 1 or 2 herniated discs. It was like already a year ago, but she was in a lot of fear about movement, bending her back. Like every time she sat down on the ground or stood up, she kind of rolled on her stomach and pushed herself up because she was so scared to crunch up and bend her lumbar spine. And so we started working together. And back then I didn't really have a concept of a rehab framework. I didn't have the knowledge that I have now. I just knew there was a person who cannot bend their spine. There's a person who is in a lot of fear. And there's a person who hasn't loaded her body in a long time out of this fear. And so we just started working on it bit by bit, to be honest. The spine bending took some more time, so she was really scared of that. And back then, I read a little bit about herniated disc, but to be honest, the knowledge out there was really conflicting. Some said you never can bend your spine ever again, some which really sounded very dodgy to me, to be honest. Some said, hey, you can bend the spine, but be careful, which I kind of gravitated more towards to. And so we started loading. We started like with leg isos. We did a lot of machines in the beginning just to get her confidence back, because without her being confident, because her brain had collected a lot of evidence that movement is not safe because the disc herniated not once, but twice. I think it was twice. Nevertheless, she had evidence it's not safe. And so now I just wanted to give her evidence that movement is actually safe. And by trying to bend her spine again, most likely she would have flared up. Her nervous system would have like crushed in and said, hey, this is not safe. We're not doing this anymore. And so I and my creativity, we had to find a lot of ways to move without actually challenging the spine yet. And so we started doing that over time, and she got better and she got more confident. And after 4 or 5 months, like it took a lot of time, but I also didn't really know what to expect, so I kind of let it take time. I was like, hey, yes, of course, let's do it. And so basically I started rehab with a case which wasn't an acute, hard, heavy rehab case, but someone who lost confidence in the gym due to a prior injury and then wanted to gain that back. And then over time we started jumping and doing all of these things. Then she's deadlifted. Now she's actually lifting really heavy. She's living in New York now, training with our endurance athletes strength program, and she's crushing the gym. And it's just like so nice to see how we changed her life, because she was not confident to do any of this. And now she's cycling like 100 kilometers. She's running half marathons. She's doing everything. And it's just so lovely to see her. And this was my first client, basically. And then over time, the cases become more and more complex. And I didn't have really complex cases, I would say, up until a year ago. So up until a year ago, I did a lot of like shin pain or like Achilles tendinopathies, some sciatica stuff, things that have been really chronic. And yes, chronic cases can be complex, but what I always thought is, okay, those people tried physiotherapy, they tried going to the doctors, and none of them helped. Most of them even made it worse with injections, with stupid therapies which didn't work and just like left them with even less confidence. And if I can only get their confidence in the gym back, not with the injury they have, but just moving better and getting stronger, we already won. And so, to be honest, with rehab, how rehab is done right now, the bar is really, really low. Like, it's really low. And so if you are a decent human being and really interested in helping the person in front of you, there is not a lot you can do wrong with cases like that. Obviously, if we talk about acute cases, post-op cases, this is a different story. There you can do a lot of things wrong. And treatment right after a surgery, like manual treatment and all of these things, those are out of my scope because I'm not a physiotherapist, I'm a coach. And so I refer people to physiotherapists for that stuff, and then they come to me once they're ready to move and actually get strong. And so, yes, over time, I got more and more complex cases. And obviously, over time, also your responsibility just grows. In the beginning, I wasn't responsible for a lot, like people were just training. And then over time, obviously, the responsibility gets bigger, bigger, bigger. Now I work with competing athletes. So I have the sprinter is just started her outer season, BJJ athlete, half marathon athletes. And if we work prior to a race season, or like even if we work 2 weeks before the race season starts, there's a huge responsibility on our work together to not fuck this up and to get them to the starting line. I mean, obviously, sometimes you just can't get them to that because the injury is so severe. And then you also have to communicate that. And then it's also your responsibility to communicate with them, hey, look, I don't think the outlook here is realistic, but this is what we can do. And then over time, you kind of grow into that role and grow into that responsibility. So you don't have to know everything by day one. Start really, really small and you will learn everything with doing. And right now, I would say my most complex case is Austin, who is a runner and football player. He his kneecap broke. He had one surgery last year, and then after the surgery, the physiotherapist he had kind of misunderstood apparently the doctor's letter. So the doctor's letter kind of said, yeah, he can put 30 kilo on the leg, which meant like 30 kilo body weight when he was walking. But the physio apparently understood 30 kilos on a leg extension. I don't know. I wasn't there. This is like the story that I was told. And that led to the screws failing. And that led to him needing to have another surgery just because the screws failed. Then he came to me after the second surgery. So after he did all this manual therapy, and his doctor said, okay, now you're done with like post-op treatment, you need to start training. But Austin said, hey, my doctor and also my physiotherapist, they work with 70 and 80-year-old people. They don't understand the extent to where I want to get. Because he wants to get back to running, maybe even football playing. I don't know. I wouldn't never say never, but we need to see how this evolves. And so he came to me to work with me. And with this case, because I did not have knowledge about the surgery, he has a plate and metal screws in his knee. I actually asked two friends. And so one big piece of advice is that you don't have to know everything, but you need to know who to ask. And I have mentors, I have friends who work in fields which I can always ask if I have questions. And this is also how the whole medical field works. Just because someone studied medicine, that doesn't make them a good doctor. A good doctor is someone who practices and gets all the knowledge and experience through practice, through mentoring, through shadowing, and just questioning their colleagues and talking together about certain treatments and just improving those treatments. And this is also how this work goes. And so I asked basically two friends, colleagues, mentors, however you want to call them. One of them is an orthopedic surgeon and in Edinburgh, and he is doing surgeries like this. And so I asked him about the specific graft type, about the area of the surgery, like what kind of contraindication, what can happen to the screws. And he said, okay, be just really cautious with loading in the first months, just because of the screws and the bone. Like the bone has to heal around the screws and it just takes time. And then I also asked another friend and mentor who used to work in Aspeta with like high-level football players and athletes and is now one of the physios of a Premier League club. And so he saw a lot of injuries like that. And I just talked to him and I was like, hey, look, this is what I think I want to do. This is like the framework or the rehab program I built in my head. What do you think of this? What do you think of the timelines? Is there anything I need to be cautious with? What kind like these angles I want to hit first before I go into dynamics? Would you do the same? What did you do that you would do differently? And so through all these conversations, you are just learning much more. And even now, for example, with the sprinter, I just ended up talking with a colleague who is working more in basketball training and rehab. And he just really knows a lot about sprinting biomechanics. And we just started talking about the case. And he also gave me a couple of tips and things to look out for. And this is basically how you build your confidence and your knowledge and your experience and skill. So no one is born with a skill like this. This is something you acquire throughout your career. And this is honestly like this skill acquisition is the one thing that excites me most about my job. I don't really care about how much money I make, to be honest. As long as I can pay my bills, I'm happy about it. I don't need a big house or yacht or whatever. Like, I don't really care about these materialistic things, but it's just really exciting to me to learn new skills because Andi 10 years ago couldn't have done what Andi is doing now. Not in rehab, not in podcasting, not in writing, not in having these ideas. And this is what excites me the most next to actually helping people. Like, there's not a better feeling than being able to help someone who couldn't be helped before and just seeing them get back to performing and doing what they love. This is such a strong feeling for me because I used to be an athlete and that back then no one could help me. And so I basically do and provide the care that I would have wished back then. And to sum it up, if you truly care about helping a person, you will do all in your power to research, to talk to the right people, to talk to the mentors, to rethink your process. And through that process, you actually gain the skills. And you might not feel ready to rehab really complex cases, but you might be ready to just coach a friend or maybe a friend who twisted their ankle to give them some tips there. And then over time, you will start building up your repertoire and your knowledge about this. And then you will find your true passion. It might be rehab, it might be performance, it might be a certain sport, it might be something completely else. But throughout this phase of exploration, you can kind of explore what topics you're interested in and then go deep down into one topic. And this one topic for me right now is rehab and mentoring others. I expect in 10 years that the topic might be even something else. I don't know. Maybe it's still going to be rehab. But yeah, so I hope this answers your question. A really, really great one, to be honest. Really good question. Thank you so much. Second question is also a bit business related, and that's why I clustered those two questions together for this podcast. It's from Mihailo. He has been asking a lot of questions, and I have a couple of questions to get back to. I might do a couple of posts about it, so I haven't forgotten you. How did you get your first clients? Like, how did people hear of you? It's a little tougher to get started in a rehab as a solo business than to start as a PT and SNC. Did you start with PT and then transition slowly? So I don't know if you mean by PT personal training or physiotherapy. So I'm not a physio, I'm a personal trainer. And so I never wanted to be a coach because I knew my coaches, which were really toxic and not good coaches. And this was the only picture of a coach I had. And so I was like, I don't want to be that. And so when I stopped doing pentathlon, I had to detrain and I kept running. And there was a running community from Adidas back then. And I just started running with them. Very quickly, I started pacing like the sub 4-minute group because coming off competitive sports, I was a very fast runner. And so at some point they asked me if I want to pace more runs for the brand. They were building like a little sports space in Berlin. And if I want to do host runs there, I would get paid. I was 18. I think I was paid like $50 an hour for a run. I would have gone running anyway. So I was like, yeah, of course. And then over this, I basically slowly got into strength training. I did all of the things that I now think are very questionable, like functional movement screening, perform better, exos, all of these things, which now I know what they were. But back then it was like, oh, wow, there's more to training than just go all out every day and don't eat anything, like what I learned doing pentathlon, basically. And so I went into that and started doing group classes as a coach, and started coaching, started coaching people better movement. So to do good strength training, to move well in the gym. I had a lot of workshops for women, actually, for deadlifting, for squatting, stuff like this. Then I got more into boxing. So I started boxing relatively quickly after quitting pentathlon. And after a couple of years, I was a bit annoyed by all these fitness boxing classes, which were like doing just random stuff and then 3 burpees with it. You could say that this was like the thing coming before High Rocks, like same energy, I would say. And so I was a bit frustrated by that and was like, come on, can we please teach people how to box in a good way, like how to actually throw a punch? And so I started doing that. I had a boxing for beginners class. And then after some time, I actually developed that class into a sparring class. And then one of those people who attended my classes, he asked me, Manolito, he was my first ever client. And to be honest, without him, I don't know if I would be here and doing what I do without him, because he was the first person asking me for personal training. I never saw myself as a personal trainer. But then he was like, hey, would you do one-on-one boxing, like a pad work boxing session with me? And I was like, yeah, okay, I can do that. And then over time, we also did more strength training and running training, and him and a friend, they started training together, and so I trained them. And then I started hosting basically track sessions, but for like athletic track sessions. So we did like a lot of running drills, change of direction, like all the strengthening condition, like the conditioning part of strength and conditioning on track, and teaching that. And then more and more people came to me asking for personal training. They had a goal, like a 5K goal, a marathon goal. And I never was the type of trainer just setting them up with a running program. But I always had like this big belief in holistic training. And I always thought, okay, if you are going to run, you also need to do strength training. You need to be strong, because strength training is creating capacity for you to do that. Like I did this for a couple of years. And then what I said in my last story, my first rehab client came basically. And then I transitioned more and more from personal training to rehab. And so, for example, now I also don't do personal training anymore at all. I just do rehab and performance coaching. And so for me, it was not hard to start, but for me, this was a thing over from back then. Like the moment I started coaching truly until now, it has been 11 years. And so this was just a very long process. On the side, I was studying, and up until 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, I never thought that coaching and being a rehab specialist will be my main occupation. I still thought I will become an engineer and do that. And I would say over time, also just being in Berlin, I've grown up in the city. People know me. I've been to a lot of events, parties. Like I took it all in. And then growing my social media, now obviously I'm known for what I do. So for me, the whole process was really organic and really slow. I can understand that you don't want to wait 11 years for it to come. And what I would really advise you to do is to start coaching. So this is something we also say to our mentees. We have 1 or 2 people in the cohort who are currently not coaching at all, who have other jobs in an office, but they really want to go back to coaching. They have been coaching at some point, want to go into rehab coaching, and they are currently learning all this bar mechanics and how to coach, how to get back to running, but they're not coaching a human. And coaching is a craft. And this is something you can only develop if you coach yourself. And this is nothing you can learn online. And so a lot of coaches right now, they think they know it all because they have read it on social media, but you can truly know it if you've done it. And coaching, like the best coaches, they just have a lot of experience, and also a lot of experience in doing stupid shit. Like I did functional movement screen for 2 months, and then I was like, what is this shit? I'm a bit traumatized by it, but like doing stuff like that, And so, because then you will understand, okay, this is actually not doing, like, this is wrong. This is not helping my clients, but this is helping my clients. And you can slowly develop your style of coaching. And so if you have to start right now from the beginning, this is what we tell our mentees. First, get clients. And those don't have to be paying clients, because who would pay you if you have never done it? Get your friends, family, maybe just ask them, hey, to be honest, just pay me what you think the session is worth, and maybe have a deal with them that you can use videos of them on social media. I don't say just do social media and become an influencer. Please, 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 if you're an influencer, just stay in your lane and don't start coaching. Unless you really have coaching experience, or you really want to make an effort to have coaching experience. This is another topic, and I'm not going to start to rage about this right now. So start coaching, helping your friends. Maybe someone wants to get stronger first. Maybe someone has always a little bit of lower back pain, and then you will make them strong and will teach them how to move better, and their lower back pain slowly disappears. And then over time, you can start talking about this on social media. You can shit on social media as much as you want to, but nothing that I do now would be possible without it. Not selling out a mentorship like this, not having a lot of clients. I have a lot of clients on my waitlist, and I currently work with people in Australia, in Kuwait, in UK, in America, in Argentina, who would have never found me without social media. And, branding and social media is important, because how can you help people if no one knows who you are and what you do? And so to sum this up, to get the first clients, I would ask friends and family and just offer, hey, let's do maybe a session together, because this is also how you will learn. And secondly, if possible, I would start to coach group sessions, because something that all these group classes, I coached group classes for 4 years, and coaching all these group classes first just gave me a lot of experience, because in 1 hour, I was not seeing one person move. I was actually looking at 15 people move. And I saw 15 people moving in 15 different ways, which just accelerated my coach's eye and my development of my coach's eye. And so start maybe doing group classes, or go to some sport communities, and maybe talk to those people, and just broaden your network and start networking. And out of these group classes, and out of you just being out there, and you just talking about what you do, maybe, hey, we can do a session together, or I can show you how to squat, whatever. And with this, over time, your coaching practice will develop. So if you see coaches online who have already an established business, like me or a lot of my peers and colleagues, we haven't started yesterday and just did this and the business was there. It was a lot of work, and we just showed up consistently every day. And a very good advice David actually gave me, who's a mentor of mine, who said, hey, how do you eat an elephant? And I remember in the call, I was like, I hope I don't eat elephants. But what he meant is, like, you eat an elephant 1 bite a day. And so you don't build a big thing and a big business, and you don't do high level coaching from one day to the next, but you improve every day. You improve a tiny, tiny bit. And over time, all this consistency is accumulating. And we live currently in a world where a lot of people are promised the quick fix and the quick step, and just do this thing and you will achieve this thing. And this is not the way, and this is not how it works. And just do tiny bits every day, bit by bit. And after a couple of years, if you're really dedicated and interested in it, and if you're able to truly help people, you have a big career. And I would say, in the pyramid, like, what's the most important? Your base of the pyramid should be to help people. Because if you help people and if you make them feel better, be it training, be it rehab, whatever you do, they will start talking about how you help them. And to be honest, most of my really cool clients that I have that I really like come from recommendation from other really cool clients that I really like. And so they talk to their friends and family and said, hey, look, Andi helped me here. And then suddenly I get these messages, hey, I have been talking to this person and they said they helped you. I have this problem for so long. I looked at your social media and it looks good what you do. So my social media is a bit like my website. So no one has a website now, but it's basically like my website. So, and like a little map of what I do and how I think. And once people hit it, they can just scroll through the app and feel like, oh, this actually helps, or no, this actually doesn't really help me. This is not the person for me. And that's also fine. Like, I can't help everyone. And so to sum both of these questions up is I never woke up one day and I was like, oh, I'm ready to do rehab coaching now. But this is something that evolves over time. And if you're really dedicated to it, just start coaching. Start looking for movements, start looking for your own movement, like coach yourself, film yourself. Maybe you have some own niggles going on. Try to understand them, try to make them better. And then over time, you might be able to create a big career out of it. And so, yeah, this was the 22nd podcast episode. Thanks so much for listening. As said, we are currently filling up the second cohort of our mentorship. We're going to start beginning of September with 13 weeks of mentorship. And we're going to go through the topics of functional biomechanics, how to assess a human, how to assess gait, but also other movements, and then how to find out what your client is truly missing. And this is your starting point. And then how to find out what are the demands of the sport. And that's your ending point. And then from the ending point, you're going to reverse engineer your rehab to the starting point. And this is going to be basically your rehab framework, how to build a profitable business, how to check your finances, how to do marketing, all of these things. I think we have half of the spots left. And so if you're interested, let me know. I can also just link the form in the podcast. If you have any other questions, deep questions like this, please send them to me, because to me, it's so interesting to answer these questions. Some of you might remember the Wednesday Q&A on Instagram, and that has been really fun, but Instagram is just not the platform to answer deep questions like this. And so if you have any other further questions, let me know. I'm going to get my day started now and going to see 2 of my clients, which I'm really excited about. One client is actually a first session with a client with a sacral stress fracture. On a marathon runner, he wants to run a sub 2-hour 40, 2-hour 50 marathon, but has a stress fracture currently. And so I'm going to have a call with him. He's actually sitting not in Berlin. And then another client, she's my Hyrox athlete. After I talked about her already in another podcast, and her hip is doing amazing. She has been crushing her times. And now her shoulder is acting up a little bit. She has a pretty hectic lifestyle, you must say. And so we're going to have a look at that because she's prepping for Hyrox Berlin. And so, yeah, I'm going to get out, enjoy the sun, and have a good day, and hear you soon. Bye-bye.